My name is Leonard Kozianski. Welcome to my studio. This is where I work every day. This is where I do my paintings, and behind me is my latest effort. People ask me from time to time, how do you know when a painting's done? How do you know when it's finished? Well, for me, there is no magic moment when the painting is done. It's not like I have some idea of perfection that I'm trying to reach. My paintings are a progress, a process of one step after another, certain stages that I know I'm going to go through, where I'm trying to make the painting better. So I put something on the canvas that's not enough, it's not quite right, so I change it, I modify it. With each day, I'm trying to make the painting better. And at the end of the day, hopefully the painting looks better than it did at the beginning of the day. And I know when the painting is done is when the painting doesn't look as good, it hasn't gotten better, in fact it's gotten worse, then I know leave it alone. Whether it's ever done or not, it's hard to say, but I know to leave it alone because it's getting worse rather than better. And so my painting is a process, a progression from one stage to another, getting better and better, but never reaching any sort of state of perfection. So here's the painting, Green Valley, and how did it begin? Well, this is how it started. It started with a pen and ink study in my sketchbook. And it's about 5 by 8 inches with ballpoint pen. And I like it. It was a nice study. I didn't paint it right away. I put it away for a while, came back to it, saw it, and thought, oh, this could make a nice painting. But it's a small little thing, and I want it to be a big, full-colored image. So the next sort of correction is to turn this sketch into a painting. So I stretch a canvas, put it on the easel, and then I have to transfer the sketch to the canvas. And so how do I do that? Well, I grid the sketch off, and then I use vine charcoal. Well, let's look at that. So here it is, the first stage where I'm just taking that sketch and doing it in vine charcoal on the canvas, just using lines to indicate where things are going to be. And it's very early on. I like vine charcoal. It's very soft. I can wipe it away, put it down, wipe it away, kind of go back and forth with it, move things around, change things. It's a very flexible medium. Okay, and then after a couple of days, I've got a lot of detail. I have things where I want them to be. And so I want to sort of fix this in place. I want to make it sort of solid, and so I can build on top of it. So what I do is I use water-based ink and go over the charcoal to sort of fix it in place. But don't take my word for it. Let's let the artist tell us about it. After I have transferred my sketch to my canvas using charcoal, I can then go back over those lines with a water-based ink and a fine brush, and that will fix that charcoal drawing in place. And because I'm using a water-based ink rather than a so-called permanent ink, it won't dissolve in paint thinner or turpentine. And then when my ink is dry, I can then wipe the charcoal lines away with a rag, leaving the ink lines behind. So there it is, it's inked in. And the ink lines over the charcoal, then I wipe the charcoal away, and so now, this is a nice foundation to begin painting. But, again, I'm looking at this and I'm not happy with it the way it is, because it's just lines on a canvas. For some artists that might be fine, but I want it to be full color, full of detail, be much richer. And so, I begin the process of oil painting. And I don't like to work on a white canvas. And why is that? Well, let's let the artist tell us a little bit about this next stage. Once I'm ready to begin toning my canvas, I take a rag, I dip it into paint thinner, and then I dip it into the paint, and then I wipe it onto the canvas with my rag very loosely, covering the whole canvas with a reddish brown tone. And then I'm going to let that dry. Well, that was interesting. But why, but why do that? I mean, okay, we've got the canvas toned. Now what? Now that my canvas is toned, I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to begin painting. And since most of the colors I'm going to apply are blues and greens because it's a landscape, the reddish brown is the opposite. It's the complement of blue and green. So a little bit of that reddish brown is going to flicker through those blue-green brushstrokes, animating them. Plus, the reddish brown tone will modulate the blues and greens depending on how thickly I apply them. Now, a lot of people paint on a white canvas. I don't care for that because on a white canvas all the colors are darker, so it's a process of darkening. Plus the white tends to rob some of the colors of their intensity. I prefer this more chiaroscuro technique where some of the colors are darker and some of the colors are lighter, so I'm working light to dark right away. Now some people, they like to begin working as soon as the tone is applied. They like working wet and wet. And that's for you to decide. Okay, well that was interesting. So now we have a toned canvas that we can work on. And so what do we do next? Well, many years ago, when I was in London, at the Courtauld Institute in London, they had a whole series of unfinished Rubens paintings. And I was looking at them and I was saying, when he began, and I would see these panel paintings and unfinished panel paintings and where he was just painting in brown and white. And that would give him an idea of what he was going to do. And that was very interesting because, he's sort of creating a tone panel and then painting with brown, and that gives him an idea of what his composition is going to be like, the basic lines and movements in that composition. And so what I did was when I paint, I do that as my next step too. I just block everything in with brown paint, just to put in the shadows, just to see, what the composition is going to be like, what the flow of the shapes and the lines is going to be. And I can still change things around quite a bit, eliminate details, add details, because it's just brown paint. Once I start to add lots of colors, well, it becomes more and more difficult to change. But at this stage, it's still very changeable. And so let's look at this next painting by Rubens. Again, I'm in the Courtauld Institute many years ago, and I see this. And this is the Conversion of St. Paul. Okay, and it was painted in 1610. The other one was David slaying Goliath, and that was done in 1620. This one is the Conversion of St. Paul, done in 1610. And notice that this painting, again, a panel painting, about this big, primarily in brown and white. So he's adding white to give himself the light side and the dark side of these forms. It's creating more of a sense of volume, a sense of space. When it's just the brown alone, things are still a little bit flat. And so we improve that. We progress by adding white, and then that gives us more volume, more form. And here Rubens is actually adding some color. So where did Rubens get his idea to do that? Well, maybe he took it from Leonardo. And we can see in this painting by Leonardo da Vinci of St. Jerome in the Wilderness that brown and white makes a really nice foundation for a painting. This painting looks almost complete in and of itself. Now, this was just an underpainting for Leonardo. He was going to finish it, he never did, and so we can see how he began his paintings. But boy, what a nice foundation on which to build colors, glazes, etc. Remember, oil paint is translucent. So having that brown and white underpainting, that foundation, that's always going to sort of like shine through a little bit, even to the very end. And this painting was done in 1480. So that's what I did with my painting. Oh, if we're going to steal, okay, if we're going to, Rubens was maybe stealing his ideas from Da Vinci. Well, I think it's perfectly fine to steal ideas from other artists, but steal from the best. so this is the painting at this stage. And again, I've added white to the brown, and so now there's more, I have a sense of the composition, the flowing of the forms, the disposition of things. And now by adding the white, I'm getting more of a sense of the form, the sense of light and shadow. And this painting is progressing. It's getting better. I like it better. Okay. For some artists, this would be fine, but I want it to be in color, and I want more detail. Things are still a little bit rough, and I don't like just the brown and white. So, what's the next? How can I make this better? How can I improve this? How can I correct? It's not really a mistake, but what I'm going to do next is sort of a correction, because I don't want it just brown and white. So the next step is to add color, to rough in some colors and start to add detail. And you can see that in the painting. There's some detail in the grass and in the trees. And I'm beginning to underpaint some of the areas that I want to be a different color. Now, oil paint is, it's a multi-layered process. Okay, we can build layers on top of each other. And so I'm thinking about that. And how can I use this multi-layered process to make my painting even better? Well, one of the ways I do that is by first underpainting areas with pure white. And so that's what I'm doing with the roofs of these houses. Okay, I'm just underpainting with pure white to create that sort of shingle appearance. And then I'm adding sort of like a stucco-y texture to the light of the sides of the buildings of the houses. And so then once that's dry, then I can glaze color over the top of that. So here I've glazed red over that white underpainting, and that creates more of a glowy red than it would be if I just painted it straight out. And plus the white allows me to create a sort of sense of detail that sort of shines through that glazed paint. Well, let's go back and look at that earlier stage. See, there's the white underpainting, and then here it is glazed. And so it's hard to see that in a digital photograph, but in life, in seeing the painting in person, those colors really are a lot glowier, a lot richer. So then, okay, so this is fine, this looks good, but how can I make it better? Well, the next step is to add full details. Okay, so I've got those runners in the middle of the painting running down the road. I've added the fisherman at the bottom of the painting. And notice that those ripples in the water that from his bobber, they're perfect concentric circles. Okay? And notice that the houses are all identical. They're very almost identical, and they don't look like real houses. So this is a surrealist painting. This is very much like a dreamlike painting, a dreamlike image. It's not realistic at all, really. But surrealism is a combination of painting the visual appearance of things along with our emotional and psychological reaction to them. Our perceptions combined with our observations. And so by mixing those together, we create a more fully developed vision, a more truthful vision of our world than if we were to just paint the appearance of things or just paint our emotional reaction to them. Combining the two, creating this surrealist painting, I think, for me, creates a more complete, a more truthful depiction of reality, a more truthful image of reality than just one or the other. But I'm looking at this painting, and even though I've got all these details, these figures, the people, there's a bicyclist in the distance, and someone walking a dog, and then there's that church in the distance, and the sailboat, and I don't want the church to be too big. With me and my friends, church is an important part of life, but it's not a huge part of our lives. And so in my painting, I want the church to be prominent, but I don't want it to be too big. It's an essential part of the painting, but it's not a huge part of the painting. And but I'm looking at the painting and I'm saying, there's just something not right about this painting. There's not enough atmosphere, not enough space. And even though it's a surrealist painting, even though it's a dreamlike image, it's still just not quite right. I want more space, more atmosphere. And those windows, they don't really shine and glow the way I want them to. So what did I do next? Well, the next thing I did, again, correcting a previous error where I thought, not enough atmosphere, not enough space. Well, I added a black glaze, a thin layer of black over the whole middle of the picture, and then wiped away a lot of it. And that created much more of a sense of atmosphere, a sense of space, a sense of light and shadow. And so I liked it a lot better. And those windows in the church, those stained glass windows, really start to glow. So again, correcting, making the painting better, progressing. It's not like I've reached some sort of ideal stage where I say, oh, the painting's done. I'm just trying to make it better with each day. And then I reach a certain point where if I paint more on it, it gets worse rather than better. And so then I know, leave it alone. Okay? And I'm looking at them thinking, I'm not really sure. I don't know. And so I brought some friends in, some family members. Said, well, what do you think? And they said, oh, no, that looks really good. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Okay, so I'm going to leave it alone because I can't think of what to do to it to make it any better. But that's the way that my paintings progress. They go, from an idea in my head, and they become this physical reality, this physical paint, this object. And, in the creation of that object, that's like a surprise. It becomes an entity of its own. And it's not like something that I could plan in advance, because transforming an idea into a physical reality, whether you're making a painting or you're building a company or you're building a piece of furniture or farming a piece of land, when you take an idea and make it into a physical reality, there's a transformation that takes place. This thing takes on a life of its own. It becomes its own entity. And that's actually more interesting, better than the idea that was originally in my head. Well, thank you for watching this video. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Or, you can like this video, share it with a friend if you like it, or leave a comment. I answer all the comments. But by liking and sharing and subscribing, you help me and encourage me to do more videos. So thank you very much.
If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and share.
And don't forget to ring the bell.